Welcome to tonight's meeting. This is the 16th meeting of the City Board of Directors. Meeting this day, September 18th, 2018. And our invocation will be led by Victor Artigia. I'm sorry. Our pledge of allegiance will be led by Suzanne Davidson, Director Davidson. Please rise.
And pray with me. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this time that we get to come before you. Lord, we just look to you and we say thank you that you are the Lord of Hot Springs. Thank you for your loving kindness, your tender mercies. Lord, we thank you for this time that we just get to come before you, and we just ask for your wisdom to be poured out tonight. Lord, thank you for every member represented in this room. Lord, we just come before you and we say thank you for who you are and that you would have your way tonight. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in calling the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This time we'll call the meeting to order, and please call the roll.
Davidson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions or items to be moved from the consent agenda to new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Director Davidson, second by Director Clark. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Now we consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of August 21, 2018, and the specially called meeting on August 28, 2018. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented? Director Williams.
I move for approval of the minutes.
Second.
We got a motion by Director Williams, seconded by Director Garcia to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. We have a proclamation to read, and will Alicia Chapman please come to the podium? Food Day's around the corner.
Yes, it is.
I understand, yes. And City of Hot Springs has a proclamation, whereas the health and well-being of our citizens is of primary concern for the City of Hot Springs, and whereas promoting safer, healthier diets is a critical factor in improving citizens' overall health, and whereas supporting sustainable family farms and local agricultural benefits the local community, and whereas expanding access to food and reducing hunger is of critical importance to those who live in food deserts, and now therefore I, Pat McCabe, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2018 as Food Day in Hot Springs, Arkansas. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed on this 18th day of September in the year of our Lord 2018, signed Pat McCabe. And Alicia's going to talk a little bit about Food Day and the activities at the farmers market. First, I'm going to run this down to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a brief summary about Food Day. Food Day is a national celebration that began in 2010 as a way to promote healthy, affordable, and sustainable eating. And since 2013, Growing Healthy Communities, along with Levi Hospital and the Farmers Market, collaborated collectively to bring Food Day here to our community. And so on Saturday, we will have a chain of events that will take place. Some of those events will include nutrition educational sessions. We'll have healthy snack demos. We'll have games and activities for our kids. And this is just to educate our community about healthy eating and also to make them aware of the local food resources that we have here in Garland County. So if you're not busy in the area, just swing by the farmers market from 8 to noon. We'll be there bright and early just to celebrate Food Day in a very unique way. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Chapman? I know that, is this the last day for farmers market as well, or do they continue on?
They will continue on till October. This the summer market, and then the winter will start up in November, and it will just be on Saturdays. But until October, it's still on Tuesday from 4 to 9 and Saturdays from 7 to noon.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We have a proclamation declaring the results of the special election for issuing bonds for Mid-America Science Museum improvement projects. This has already been published in the local newspaper, but we're required to announce it at a city board meeting that on that particular issue, there was 1,003 votes were cast for the measure and 520 votes were cast against the measure regarding the bond issues for Mid-America Science Museum improvement projects. At this time, I'd like to call on Ms. Drew Terry to come to the podium. Ms. Terry, do you got a moment to come to the podium? Ms. Terry, for 22 years you have served the city and the city board of directors through the coordination of a minister to come and lead us in prayer in advance of the meeting. And your support and your activities have not gone unnoticed. And while you officially turned over the reins to Melissa Glenn a few months back, we didn't want you to so-called escape without us giving you proper recognition.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
so we have a little gift here for you.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'd ask the city board to come down and join me. Read this without glasses up there. Can I use yours?
Here you are.
Where's the light? We have to Drew Terry, Hot Springs Women of Prayer. We gratefully acknowledge your 22 years of faithful service to the Hot Springs Board of Directors and the citizens of Hot Springs. Presented on this 18th day of September, 2018.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for all that you
Well,
do.
God bless you all. Or you all get paid so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We get closer
together, that'll be just fine.
Go ahead.
Uh-oh. Is it really? Tim?
Very good.
Oh, okay.
I can just see you two going up the steps. Ooh, he pushed me.
like to thank for the patience from the audience and those at home. We tend to do all of our photo ops at 6:30 so that we don't have a stop in our meeting activities. But when you have a surprise and you want to recognize somebody special, we have to do that during regular session and not in advance. So, Ms. Terry, once again, on behalf of the Board of Directors, we appreciate you and all those years. And Melissa, 22 years, that's a long time. Yeah, you got about 21 and a half years to go. So we'll move on with the City Manager's report. Mr. Burrows.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just a few things we have coming up. We have an overabundance of materials at our compost facilities. So throughout the month of September, all of the wood, chips, mulch, compost, as well as the loading services will be free at 318 Davidson Drive, the Hot Springs Compost Facility. Their hours are 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. For more information, you can call 262-3572. Again, 262-3572. And please come down and get some of these items that are used very much during this time of year in the spring. So we have it for free. Come on down and see us. Free homebuyers class will be offered on Saturday, September 22nd from 9:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. at the Transportation Depot at 100 Broadway Terrace. The class, sponsored by the Hot Springs Community Development Block Grant Program, offers up to $10,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance for qualifying graduates. Attendees will learn about loan programs, available financial assistance, improving credit, budgeting, real estate contracts, home inspections, and much more. Lunch is provided and pre-registration is required. You can do so by calling 372-2611. If you need that number again, feel free to contact the city manager's office, and we'll be sure and get that number to you. Next is something we're very pleased to announce. As part of the Arkansas State Aid City Street Program, paving has begun on 7th Street. Yay! That is, as you know, a very highly traveled corridor. We don't have a lot of north-south corridors running throughout the city, and a lot of people use that as they move here into within the city. That street will be paved from Emory Street to Greenwood Avenue. Crews will work daytime hours only, Monday through Friday for approximately 2 weeks, weather permitting. Upon completion, the work crews will move over to pave a section of Fox Pass from Park Avenue, Highway 7 intersection to the city limits. Beginning Sunday night, the Arkansas Department of Transportation will repave Park Avenue from Whittington Avenue to the Gorge Road, working Sunday through Thursday nights from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. The project will take approximately 3 weeks, weather permitting, and we'll have a new section of Park Avenue from that particular section. Couple of last things. National Night Out will be held Tuesday, October 2nd. The Hot Springs Police Department encourages all neighborhoods and citizens to get involved in this annual event that promotes police community partnerships and neighborhood support. National Night Out enhances the relationship between neighbors and law enforcement while bringing back a real sense of community. We're hoping for one of the largest turnouts this year. Last year was a really good event. This year we want to see it become a great event. And finally, the Majestic site. We finished that mitigation yesterday. We are still waiting on that testing, but from all indications, we did the test digs that I'd mentioned before, and we were able to again mitigate all of that and take that out to a landfill. And we should be receiving in the next few days or early next week a certificate of residential compliance on that particular piece of property. We do have some tentative date sets for some of the public outreach. That is looking like it's going to be in the latter part of October or in November. So we haven't solidified those. We're going to wait and make sure that we get that certificate. But before the end of the year, we will start that public input process for that property. Mayor, that's all I have.
Great. Well, it'll be nice to get that final report on Majestic so we can move forward. So thank you very much. Board of Directors announcements of upcoming events. Anybody got an upcoming event they'd like to make the public aware of? Director Garcia.
The National Night Out was mentioned, and the National Night Out at in District 5 at 5 o'clock will be at 305 Forest Lakes Boulevard, and we'll have time to complete that event before our city board meeting that evening. And on October 15th, at the same location, we'll be hosting a candidate forum for all city officials' races. All have been invited. Dick Antoine will be moderating the forum, gathering at 4:30 with refreshments and forum to begin at 5 p.m.
Very good. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on. At this time, we'll consider the consent agenda. These items are routine nature and do not require discussion. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor, I so move.
Got a motion by Director Garcia, second by Director Jones. All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. We have 3 action items that we'll address tonight. They're all 3 are resolutions. At this time, we'll consider resolution number R18-128 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R18-128, a resolution amending Community Development Block Grant Fiscal Years 2014, 2017, and 2018 Annual Action Plans as amended to reallocate $33,006.44 to eligible projects. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
So moved.
We got a motion by Director Jones, seconded by Director Williams. Planning Director Kathy Selman for the staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Board.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Every year, we prepare an annual action plan that details how the HUD Community Development Block Grant funds will be spent. Title 24 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Sections 91505, requires that we formally amend these annual action plans whenever changes in spending are needed. And we have a good reason for changing spending. This amendment will reallocate $33,006.44 in unencumbered funds resulting from 5 projects, all of which came in under budget this year. $14,000 would be used for structural reconstruction of the foundation of the John Lee Webb House, and $19,006.44 for continuing sidewalk, curb and gutter, and ADA accessibility improvements in the 1,000 block of Park Avenue. Both eligible projects were submitted in August of 2017, prioritized by the Community Development Advisory Committee in May of 2018, and adopted in Resolution 9278 on June 5th, 2018. These proposed projects exceeded the amount of fiscal year 2018 grant funding that we got from HUD, and they were placed on hold for reconsideration when additional funding became available. And now we have additional funding available. The Community Development Advisory Committee held a duly advertised public meeting on September 6th to review this amendment. 6 citizens attended. 3 comments were heard in support of the proposal, and the Community Development Advisory Committee unanimously recommended that the Board of Directors consider this amendment. This had been advertised, no written comments have been received, and we ask that you consider approving the resolution or remanding it to CDAC for specific changes. Thank you.
Any questions of Director Selman? Thank you. We had no members of the audience sign up to speak on this resolution. Any discussion amongst directors? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. This time we'll consider resolution number R18-128 and ask the city attorney to read by title only.
Resolution R18-129, a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with GRGCB LLC for certain city property located at 349 Malvern Avenue. That concludes your reading, Mayor. This having been tabled on August the 21st of 2018, no motion or second is required to adopt. However, discussion could be in order. Other alternatives would be to take affirmative action to deny or to approve, to amend, or in the alternative to table at the request of the applicant.
Do we have a staff
Certainly.
report?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
As the city attorney had just stated, the item that was brought before the board August 21st was tabled by the board following some discussion. It was to be brought back on September the 18th, which is obviously this meeting. Mr. Jeff Simmons with the entity that operates the Hotel Hot Springs was asked to attend this meeting to address any questions or deficiencies that the board of directors had of Mr. Simmons. I don't see him in the audience, and I don't believe he had signed up to address the board either. But just some basics of the consideration. The lease agreement itself is to lease city property at 349 Malvern Avenue. That's where the former Hot Springs water utility building was located at. This lease was a new lease. The previous lease that the entity had expired, and they were on a month-to-month holdover to date. With concerning the lease, I'm not for sure about any other debts that they owe. The lease specifically, they have gone, they're past due in their June, July, August, and September, so 3 months. So we're looking at a little over $6,000 that is that's owed on that lease payment, which was $2,000 a month with a 10% late fee following the 15th of the month. So here we are, and the Mr. Simmons, as I said, was asked to attend the meeting, but he is not here.
Lance, is it my understanding that that Mr. Simmons asked that it be set off for a period of time?
That's correct. On Monday, September 10th, Mr. Simmons contacted the city clerk's office and asked for consideration of a 2-month set off on this particular item to give him some additional time to gather some information. And as far as the lease goes, there was also a site plan that was going to need to be part of the lease agreement. He had asked for those 2 months to in essence gather up some of the information that would need to be part of that lease agreement.
Of course, that's within the board's prerogative to grant that request or to take action. In the event that this were voted down, it cannot be brought back to the board for 6 months unless 2/3 of the board agrees to place it on a future agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we table this for 2 months.
We have a motion by Director Foley to table for a period of 2 months.
I have one question.
Yes.
First, has anyone approached the city about purchasing that property or leasing that property?
Not since the hotel, just basically since it has been wrapped up in a long-term lease. I believe any of those groups or entities that would be interested in it kind of see it as something that is somewhat encumbered by an existing lease. No, ma'am.
You have a motion to table for a period of 2 months.
I'll second that.
We have seconded by Director Williams,
And then I have a question.
and discussion.
Uh,
Director Williams.
Okay, so was the previous action to table it to this meeting?
It was.
Okay, so,
The goal, I believe, was.
because I missed the last meeting, I'm
The
sorry.
goal was for them to take care of some unfinished business as it related to payment of some monies owed here and monies owed elsewhere, so. Director Garcia.
If it's in a month, it continues in a month-to-month
Right.
rental lease until further action is taken.
It would.
And so,
Yeah, additional
But-
lease payments would be accruing.
but if it's in a lease and they lost the hotel, would our lease be tied up in any type of action, or could we then, would you have to wait till that was settled
No, we are in a position to terminate the lease
anytime?
at any time.
Because I didn't see where any of the other debts were taken care of yesterday.
And just for clarification, assuming that it would be tabled for 2 months, we'd be looking at the November 20th meeting.
Would it be preferential to put that as the date certain?
I mean, the closest would be on a Sunday, so if we just said 2 months, if Director Foley would like to amend his motion to state that it would be a date certain of November 20th board meeting.
So moved.
Director Foley has amended his motion to the 20th of November.
And his second agrees to that.
And Director Williams agrees wholeheartedly. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Resolution, this is tabled. At this time, we'll consider our final action item, Resolution R-18-130, and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-18-130, a resolution establishing a downtown business district parking advisory committee for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Clark, seconded by Director Jones. Well, I'm sorry, Suzanne.
I think we were
Director
simultaneous.
Suzanne Davidson. Mr. Hudnall, I'm sorry, Lance.
That's going back in time.
That's a
Spicer.
blast from the
Mr.
past.
Spicer, yeah, there we go.
Well, it may be appropriate you brought up Mr. Hudson when we talk about parking, because Hot Springs, this item comes to the board to consider formation of a parking advisory committee. I believe Hot Springs has been dealing with parking well before Mr. Hudnall and
Before you were born.
since way back. As the board may recall, the Economic Development Administration funded a study that was a downtown action plan, but also there was a subsequent piece of it that dealt with the pedestrian and a parking enhancements plan. And in that plan itself, it went through the narrative of parking and how it has impacted and been an issue in Hot Springs for some time. Really, the literature that plan reviewed dealt with parking in many, many different facets, from before the convention center was built to following the convention center being built to a parking deck needing to be built, a parking deck being built. This particular item is coming to you as a recommendation to form a parking advisory committee, and that would be done in such a way that it stays with the board's existing advisory committee regulations and guidelines and the policies that have been previously adopted. The Parking Advisory Committee, it has some pretty broad policy statements, but overall, we feel like it addresses some of the need that exists in downtown parking, because one, you will have a 5-member committee that would be more focused on something as specific as parking. It's a very important part of the downtown business landscape, and a lot of those studies took a general global view of a lot of things that impact businesses downtown. Parking is something that impacts them, those business owners, the stakeholders, very directly. So I think it's very appropriate to have a parking advisory committee that would be focused on those issues dealing with parking. So the recommendations that the Park Advisory Committee would make would be made to the Board of Directors and to the Hot Springs, the city manager himself, to consider those recommendations. And really what we have asked them to do is to look at the existing parking supply that we have. Currently, Hot Springs, if you call the downtown, the core business district, there's roughly 1,000 to 1,200 parking spaces. So those Hot Springs is somewhat lucky to have good variety in those assets. You have parking, surface lots, on-street parking, off-street parking, parking facilities. So you have multi-story facilities, and in doing that, there's a mix more so of private. Approximately 17 different lots and facilities that fall in the private category, and you've got about 7 to 8 parking lots that would be deemed public lots. And really, you've got good parking resources and assets, but the Parking Advisory Committee would be focused on looking at many things, one being determining the demand that exists for parking, if additional facilities need to be constructed, need to be recommended, and also how to fund some of those facilities, because by and large Hot Springs has approximately 300 paid meters in the downtown area, and we've shifted away from the pay aspect in the Exchange Street parking deck. That's about 250 spaces. So in doing so, the Parking Advisory Committee would likely look at having a mix of the private lots that obviously have parking permits for pay, maybe a good mix of free parking, paid parking, and really bring you all back a recommendation to look through what needs to be done to obviously raise revenue to increase those assets or enhance them, and in doing so they can look at a lot of different things in more detail than what staff can do without having someone that has a vested interest in downtown parking. So that's kind of the preamble to the parking committee itself. It's a 5-member committee being proposed as a 5-member committee. They would have 5-year terms, which is very similar to the parking authority setup that the board had a work session on previously. The 5-year terms, we didn't put any type of specific requirements on the membership that they have. They'd be a business owner within the downtown area, or be someone with a background in parking. Really, we left that up to the applicants to come forth and obviously be someone that's very interested in seeing our downtown grow and thrive. So with that, that's kind of what we are recommending in a fashion as a parking advisory committee in place of a parking authority, which I'd previously mentioned. The parking authority deals more in off-street parking. So Hot Springs has a tremendous amount of on-street parking, but parking authority specifically deal in off-street parking facilities, parking lots, and things of that nature. So this committee itself would be well positioned to make some good recommendations to the board and to the city manager.
Assuming that this is approved tonight, what's the timetable for seeking candidates to fill the 5 slots, and what would be the process?
The process itself is detailed in the Hot Springs Code 2-801, and that would be to solicit applications from, put out a press release to solicit applications. Generally speaking, we keep that time frame open approximately 30 days to allow applicants to gather their application materials and anything else that they wish to submit. And following that, we verify the candidates to ensure that they are qualified electors of the city and that they are able to serve, still willing to serve. And then following that, we would set a date to have the board convene interviews and look at the appointment of those members.
They really look at sometime in November at the earliest.
Correct.
Any other questions of Mr. Spicer? Yeah, Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question. In reading through this, I didn't see anything about ADA accessibility and wanted to ask the board if that's something in that declaration of policy or in this that we needed to include.
Well, I think legally we almost have to, don't we?
Well, but often if you're not aware of it, if you don't have that, a well-bodied person doesn't always think about it.
Exactly, yeah.
That certainly could be a factor in the membership makeup
Yeah.
of this advisory committee. There's not any construction that is being proposed as a result of this advisory committee. However, that could be a recommendation. And obviously, any construction activity that might take place would need to take ADA into account.
And even the number of spaces we have based on our total spaces and where they are to be ADA compliant.
We would certainly do that.
Yeah. I think that really needs to be looked at because more than once I've seen it sort of be a problem or an issue finding that a significant number of those spaces. One thing I will note is that the few years, less than a decade that I've been driving that, this year, foot traffic and crowds far surpass, and I've been wanting to go across the street and get the numbers and try to find out, because I think it was downtown was busier than I've ever seen it. I mean, I don't think there's any storefronts available, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Director Fowler, you had your hand up earlier.
I have two questions. There was some allusion to the fact that we would be looking at both public and private parking as a matter of this process. Does this board feel like a public-private partnership is the desirable outcome? In other words, should we ask them to focus on developing something like that, or is that too early in the game? Too early? Okay. The second question I have is what resources are going to be available to this committee? They're not going to be going out and doing all the work. So what department resources are going to be assigned to them as staff to the committee?
We do have that spelled out within the code of setting up this committee. That can be amended by the board as we move through and go through those applicant processes. We see a liaison or a staff member being a liaison to the committee, housing either in engineering, public works, or planning. We're still working through which one of those departments will be able to take that
Okay.
on.
Just depending on
But we
their
do have
specific
a
need.
plan in process to appoint a liaison.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? We had no member of the public sign up, so please call the roll.
Well,
Clark?
just
Oh,
clear,
sorry.
I'm
so
sorry.
we are including, I don't know what the conclusion was to my question.
We're-
We are including ADA in this?
Well, as I mentioned, that could be a factor that the board in appointing members to this advisory committee might want to take into account. As you mentioned, an able-bodied person, I think was the term that you used, might not see things the same way. So certainly that's something that the board
But
can
it's not a requirement.
It's not. There's no construction being proposed.
But it's more than just construction when you're thinking ADA.
Well, if you're going to change something, you're talking construction
Well, I'm talking compliance.
through construction.
Well, just our parking, city parking that we have even now, we may not be in compliance.
Do you want to add a duty and responsibility to consider ADA parking as a part of this process?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking? Is that
I'm asking the board if, I'll make that as
Oh, it would be part of
amendment
the
if you.
process. We would expect it to be part of the process. I think the discussion, at least what I was hearing is, are we required to ensure that one of the 5 spots is provided to a individual with a disability that they could then assist? And I think what city attorney was saying is that isn't written that way. But we certainly can select an individual who may have a disability who makes application.
As part of the materials.
I don't think that's what she was asking for.
Well,
I didn't interpret it that way.
What you were answering to.
We will make sure that we have those particular requirements as a resource to this committee as it's appointed. both with the prior and existing, the most recent studies, and we can also make sure that they're aware of any ADA requirements that exist regarding parking. We'll pull that resource and have that available for the committee.
Okay, so that'll be in their purview.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
Please.
One quick question. I think I remember last week you mentioned that it would be like a rolling
Correct.
time period. So like everybody's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year appointments initially. Is that right?
Actually, the way that the boards and commissions term is set up initially, you would take your initial 3 members, 3 and 2 majority and minority numbers, and the 3-year members would have a term that would go till 2022, and then the 2-year members would go till 2023. So you would begin their term in 18, and then the next 2 would begin in 19 to stagger them
2
so
or
that they can
3
have a
new
correct.
ones each
Yeah.
cycle. Okay, thank you.
And I will, we had discussed this, and the board does have the authority to appoint in a different manner if you so choose to have have those 5 applicants. You could appoint 1 to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or through a draw. What we're following today is what's currently in the Code 2, and but you do have the authority to appoint that as you appoint the committee.
Should you elect in the future to convert this over to an authority, then it would be 5-year terms, but 1 rolls off each year.
All right, please call the roll.
Clark,
Hi.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye, resolution is adopted. This time we'll consider Board of Directors' comments. Any director has a comment? Director Williams.
Yes, yesterday, because you were attending other duties, I presented the proclamation for the city of Hot Springs on your behalf at the Constitution Week ceremonies at the Fordyce. Constitution Week is September 17th through the 23rd. I consider myself to be a student of the Constitution. I still am teaching American National Government at UALR at Benton, even though I've got a statewide campaign. I'm doing that this semester on Fridays. I always give pocket constitutions to my students when we discuss the Constitution, and we always read the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments in class.
Thank you, Director Williams. Director Garcia.
Yes, I wanted to give a shout out and thank you for the great job from our neighborhood services. Mike and Rob Keller is one of the inspectors, and Rick Stoddard came with Mike and our assistant city manager, Lance Spicer, on our neighborhood service presentation yesterday afternoon at a District 5 meeting, and they know that information inside and out, and they are so professional and competent. They answered everyone's questions, and everyone was pleased with how they communicated all the information, even the ones that came frustrated about some of the issues in their particular neighborhood. And Rob even told about someone that couldn't keep their yard mowed, but it was a widowed woman that her lawnmower wouldn't work. He fixed her lawnmower, and she's not had any more complaints or issues with her yard. That's how caring those people were. And I wanted to thank everyone involved with the First Responders Parade last Saturday. It was a beautiful day, and there was a lot of people downtown for that. I talked to residents and visitors, and one little girl told me that was the best day of her life. And lastly, Mayor, thank you and the other witnesses that participated in the congressional hearing that was right here in our board chambers yesterday. That was very interesting, and the tours that you gave, and I think that was good for Hot Springs. Thank you.
Any other comments? Director Davidson?
I just want to say that when I first made the decision to move to Hot Springs, my ex-husband grew up here. I won't mention names. But anyway, I was told by someone that I'd known for a long time that she said, whatever you do, don't go up and live anywhere near Park Avenue. It is so dangerous. Well, that was probably about 8 years ago. Now we're known as, I think, the district that is the safest, and we have less crime. And somebody said, how are you doing it? And I said, you see that little white-haired lady standing over there? They will literally run them out. I saw one just, going after a working girl one afternoon. And it's so much better. It's the change in that community. It's just really, really positive. Wonderful. And so now, homes are at a premium. I've already been asked if I'd sell mine a couple of times. So I'm not selling. I'm not going anywhere. But if you know anybody that wants a property in Park Avenue, they better hurry because there's not very many left. And I think that's a good thing. I don't know if it's happening all over Hot Springs, but I have a feeling most of the community is doing well.
I want to piggyback on Director Garcia's comments about the House hearing. The Committee on Natural Resources conducted their hearing, and it may be the first time that a House hearing was conducted here in Hot Springs. They were very complimentary of the venue. They were real complimentary of the mic system. They said that's always the number one problem they have when they go off-site is the microphone, the system, and so they were real pleased with that. They really appreciated the testimony, and I'm not saying that just because I was part of that, but I learned a lot from Mr. Tom Cassidy with the National Park Trust, and they really were here to listen. And for those of you at home and those in the audience, the way that works when you are a invited individual to testify, you provide your testimony a minimum of 48 hours in advance in written format. So I sent mine out on Friday to them, and the staff member for the House Committee had come up to me in advance and said, Mayor, we appreciate your comments. They were very good. And he said, you shed some light on things that we hadn't even considered. And so that was a very good thing. And then following the meeting, I don't know the gentleman's last name. I think it's Gordy was his first name. I think he might be the number 2 person at the National Park in Washington. He came up to me and he said, Mayor, the issues that you had with your lease relating to the proceeds, the insurance proceeds in the event of a fire or destruction, he said, the issue you brought forward is now included in the template for future leases. He said, and so that was a very good thing. He said, thank you so much for raising that point. And so what I heard from what I gathered is that that they're really listening. They want that input. They're really listening and engaging with us as end users, and then they go back and make modifications. And so I'm looking forward to this program expanding across the country and getting stronger. And as the chairman had mentioned, Chairman Bishop from Utah, the deferred maintenance is huge within the National Park Service, and then these buildings require maintenance even if they're not used, and that's being deferred. And so what they saw when they strolled down Central Avenue, Bathhouse Row, is the unique uses that each of these structures had, and it tells them that these and other very uses can occur throughout the country. And so I think they're going to go back to Washington and work hard on this and with wind in their sails. And so we only have one more bathhouse. I know we have the Libby. The National Park Service has the Libby right over here. But we have Maurice left, and it's a big one. It'll be a challenge, but we only have one. And a number of years ago, we only had one in use. So with that, thank you. And Director Jones, do you have anything?
I move that we adjourn this meeting for the night, Mayor.
Second the motion.
We got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. It is dark out there, so be
I
careful when you go
know.
home. It's
7:30.
7:49.
Should